Well, hey, welcome back to our Set Apart Conversations. In the midst of this Set Apart series where we're discussing the intersection of our faith and our work or our vocation, we're taking some time to chat with people within our church who embody what it looks like to live a life on mission for Jesus and bring that mission that they have to be disciples and make disciples into how they view their work and their careers and their vocations as well. And I'm excited today to be chatting to Josh Legacy, an incredible dude, an all-around bro, the person who has been the best man in more weddings than I think anybody in the existence of the planet. Speaks to his friendship and his relationship with people. You're also a journeyman electrician. Mm-hmm. And you explained this all to me before we started recording, and you're a 3067B. What? Can you just tell me what you do? Okay.
I have my 309A electrical ticket.
All right, is that impressive?
Construction maintenance electrician.
Cool.
Not too fancy, just construction stuff.
Okay.
And now I work in industrial automation electrical.
All right. So what do you do? So what does that mean?
I bring wires to things and turn them on and power things up, and they work.
Okay.
In a nutshell.
And with the work that you do right now, like, how did you get into going from construction to industrial? What's that career journey looked like for you, and what's that process been like?
So I mean, that transition was more so, it's pretty recent. So
yeah.
I've been doing electrical for 9.5 years.
Wow.
And industrial, I've only been there for just over a year now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's still relatively new, still learning a whole lot, which is great. I love learning stuff and trying new things. And but that whole transition came about through just basically friends of mine encouraging me to make a change, and also just wanting to grow more in what I can do. Yeah,
that's really cool. What kind of stuff in industrial? So like, from what I understand, you're making like industrial systems and processes, like a manufacturing plant would use the machines that you guys make. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. What kind of, like, are you able to share like any of what you've worked on, or like the kinds of things that get made out of this and that sort of thing? Or is that, I don't know if it's trade secrets or whatnot.
Without getting into too much detail.
All right.
It's just automated tooling systems for basically assembling different life science medical equipment.
Oh, that's cool.
So things like, I don't know if you want to, like, really basically, like syringes or even like EpiPens, stuff like that. Just different life science medical equipment that people use day in and day out all over the world.
Yeah.
So we provide solutions for other larger companies to assemble these things.
Yeah.
And put them all together to produce them to the world.
I think it's really cool, because one of these ideas that we want to make sure that we get across throughout this Set Apart series that we understand well is that our work itself can matter. Like, actually what we do can matter. Just you, not just your ability to evangelize to your colleagues, which can be really cool and important, or like disciple and love people in the workplace, or spread the love of Jesus by being honorable in how you interact with them. That's all important stuff. But just by being the best electrician possible, like just like making sure the wires are wired as good as they can be wired.
That's right.
Just by doing that stuff, like, that is actually building God's kingdom and making a difference in the world. And I think it's so clear and tangible in what you're doing, where you are literally like saving lives very far, like back in the chain of the process, but it is saving lives, like creating these EpiPens, creating these syringes, supporting like life and health, and actually being a part of healing miracles in people's lives through these systems and wirings and things you are creating, which is cool to just see that connection of like how much that work itself actually matters beyond all the other stuff that you do.
Yeah, so it's pretty easy to feel like pretty detached from it all. Like, just being so many steps back and just if you look at it closely, I'm just building a machine.
Yeah.
But like, if you look at it all the steps down the road, like, that impacts millions of people's lives, and it's like, it's pretty cool.
That's awesome. I did a little Instagram poll recently, and I was asking people like things that frustrate them at work, things that they find joy in at work. And I really liked your answer around finding joy in things. You said you just love solving complex problems. Do you want to tell me a little bit about that answer and what drew you to become an electrician and do the kind of work that you do?
Mm-hmm. So I've always liked math and fun, nerdy things like that.
Yeah.
And just problem solving and troubleshooting has always been something that I've gotten a lot of like satisfaction from.
Yeah.
And I like feeling like that I've accomplished the solution to something and been a part of it. And for me, there was I think going into electrical kind of made more sense to me as well, because like I was very close to getting into engineering. And almost going that route. But I also just don't like the idea of just like sitting behind a desk all day. Like I get pretty like kind of pent up in that. I want to just like use my hands. I want to build things. I want to be like involved in the process of solving it. And I don't want to be like kind of detached and just kind of like designing something and going in that route. But I actually wanted to physically like take something that's not working and make it work. And I like that a lot. And so electrical seemed like a good fit for that, because I get to use my hands a lot. I get to use my brain a lot. And it's probably arguably like the most complex of the trades to get into, with like a lot of physics and math and stuff if you get to like the roots of it. And there's a lot of just funky stuff going on there that I can like continually engage my brain with, which is good fun.
Dude, okay, I have this very distinct memory of like, we've known each other for like, I think like 8 years now or something, 7 years.
Like that,
about that. And it was probably like early on when we had first met. I have this distinct memory that just popped into my head of you. Is ohms a thing?
Ohms?
Ohms. I don't know. That's all like that. It sounds like we're meditating. But like, I have this distinct memory of you trying to explain like ohms and like circuit systems to me one time, and me being like, I think it was like probably like a light wall or something we were building for church, and I started being like so confused, like this is like gibberish to me.
And that's just like the basics of like electrical.
Oh yeah, dude, it was like nothing. It was like nothing. So what you're doing now is a lot more complicated than that, I'm guessing.
I've grown more since then.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. So we're talking about obviously our work, and I think your career in and of itself is really cool. We're also talking in these conversations a bit more about like our faith as well, and our calling and our purpose, and like why do we exist on work? What does it look like to do kingdom work? We already talked about how your work itself is kingdom work and the way that's contributing to life and health across our world. But I'd be curious just for you personally, how do you view your mission or your calling or your purpose or what work you've been asked to do as a follower of Jesus? What does that discipleship look like for you in your calling?
Yeah, so that's something that's been growing and evolving a lot throughout the years. Because I think initially when I was a much younger boy and first getting into all of this and work life and out of school, and when I thought about missions, the first thing that gravitated to my mind was like, hey, like, we're called to make disciples of all nations. My mission is, I don't know yet, but I know it's going to be like, I'm going to be a missionary. I'm going to go out and I'm going to do missions because that's what I'm called to do. And it always felt like something that I had to leave to go do. And it wasn't until, probably like even like 5 years ago, where I was like, hey, no, maybe it's actually like a lot more of like a local mission, and I can do all of that discipling and building the kingdom and all that kind of work locally. And because I do feel more established, I feel more connected here. And so it became, okay, like, what does it look like to actually work that out locally, and what does my mission actually look like locally? And then the way that kind of work fit in with that. So when I first started doing electrical, I was really blessed with a really good employer who was also a Christian. And one of the first things that he kind of talked to me about when I was like 18 was kind of how he viewed the trade as somebody who's been in it for much longer than I obviously had just started. And he said that he's always viewed it as the way that Paul had his tent making skill. And it was a skill that he had with him that helped support him and carry him through to do all the missions that we hear about in the Bible, where he's going from city to city and doing all this amazing work for the gospel and for the kingdom. But he also had this skill that he did to support himself. And so that's something that he taught me, and that kind of like really sunk in when I was younger, and still does. Which has been really good. And it's kind of helped me establish that, okay, like, work is great and work is very important. But for me, it was like, okay, but work is like a means to an end, like, in that end was missions. And like, that end was discipling, and that end was whatever it was I was involved in outside of work. It was just
Right.
like work was just there for me to support myself
Sure.
while I engaged in
Yeah.
building God's kingdom.
Yeah.
And then so as that kind of kept growing and
Yeah.
changing, I very easily started to kind of separate those two things. Where, okay, yeah, I'm going to work, but this is just so that I can support this.
Yeah.
And like my mission became like all this, everything I was doing outside of work is everything I was doing in church, everything I was doing with friends of mine that I was hanging
Yeah.
out with, and just trying to like engage with people, disciple people, minister to people. But then work became very like separate from all that. And I just kind of like created these like boxes. And it wasn't until even again, probably more recently where I was realizing like, okay, actually work is a place that I've been very like blessed to be established in.
Yeah.
And it is like a huge opportunity for ministry and mission, and something that I've just kind of like completely ignored for years. And so it's still something I'm working on, kind of like tying more into and leaning more into, and just kind of realizing all the opportunities that God's also giving me there to minister, which has been really cool.
That is really cool. So like you said a lot there, that was really good stuff, but it sounds like you kind of have been on this journey over your career of going from like kind of both in how you understand your calling and how like just as a disciple and disciple maker and how you understand your work. And it almost seemed like at the beginning, those two things were pretty separate things. And like church calling has to be, I move across the world to go be a missionary. And work is the thing I do to make money to support the mission. And it seems like you've been on this journey of finding a much more integrated kind of approach to how you're viewing this and seeing like, hey, no, like my work and my faith, they all go together. It's all part of the life that I'm living and how I'm a disciple and discipling others. Is that like a fair way of kind of putting what that journey's been like for you over the last little while?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Because I think probably the biggest thing I've learned more recently that I've been kind of continually working through the last 6 months has been like, however easy it is to kind of like separate those things and think about them differently.
Yeah.
Probably the easiest way for me in my mind to like bring them together is like, I'm not just going to work to support this, like however much like that is still true in a sense.
Yes.
It's like, my ministry is not just something I focus on out here. It's, kind of when you understand like your role within, I guess like your life. It's like if you understand your life and everything that you're a part of and engaged with, God's placed you everywhere for a reason, and God works within you and through you everywhere. And so if your relationship with God is only at church on Sundays or when you're in your Bible study, it's just not good enough. It's just not enough. It's not what we're called to do. It's not what we're called to be. And so for me, it's realizing that like I don't just have to try to like, okay, I gotta do my missions in here now. It's just I just need to realize that like God's mission for me just encompasses my whole life. And work is a big part of that. And so for me, it's not so much trying to like drag God into my workplace and try to like establish that more. It's how can I just continue living my like faith and being authentic with who God's created me to be in both of those spaces, and not like almost ignoring work for this is just a means for my faith.
And so across the board, what does that actually look like? Like in terms of for you, Josh, to be a disciple, to be a disciple making disciple, to like do this work or this mission that God has called you to live your life with that as your top priority in all spheres of life. What does that practically look like in a few different places, like in your marriage, in your work, in friend groups, in church? Like, what does that look like for you? Where do you feel like called and challenged in that?
Because I think at first I felt that I had to, like in work, I had to try to engage in specific conversations all the time. I'd have to like talk to a coworker and be like, hey, how can I like start talking about church? How can I start doing this and that? Which is not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, no, it's good,
like, what I think I realized I needed to do more is just be like authentic with just who I am and who God is in my life, and like, the fact that like my faith is the most important part of my life. My relationship with God is primary over everything. And so it's like, how does that actually like look like, or how does that flesh itself out in every aspect,
Yeah.
instead of just trying to be like, okay, like I have this thing and it's great, but like how can I engage with the people that work and kind of like bring this to them, where
Yeah.
it's like if I just held that in its proper place everywhere I was,
Right.
that it would just happen more genuinely and authentically, and like, it wouldn't
Yeah.
need to be this thing that I had to like struggle about, like, okay, how can I like do this, and how can I kind of sneak this in
Yeah.
here, or trying to like plan out all these like sneaky little things.
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't know, if you're genuine about your relationship with God and you're authentic with how He's called you and who He's called you to be, and you were just the same person that you are in your Bible study and the same heart after seeking after God.
Yeah.
If you do that in your workplace, and so like something I practically started doing recently was I listened to these theology courses. Just kind of whenever. So like driving, or while I'm doing other stuff, or like while I was preparing for Bible studies, this and that. But I started listening to them at work. So I was just like, I have the time to do that while I'm, say, wiring the panel. I can sit there and like listen to that.
Yeah.
And
no, it's time theft. We'll be contacting your employer. Don't worry.
Okay. But I can take something like that, where it's something that I do anyway. But I can engage with that while I'm at work. And then just what naturally tends to happen sometimes is guys will come up and be like, hey, what are you listening to? Or like come and start talking to you, and they're like, wait, I gotta pause this, and they're like, oh, sorry, like, what are you listening to? And like it's started to start conversations without necessarily even trying. Like I'm not sitting there being like, okay, like how can I talk about church with this guy today, and he seems in a pretty bad mood, so like I don't know how well this is gonna go. Like, if you just stay true to kind of like what you do and how you seek God in other spaces, but kind of seek Him in every space. Opportunities will just naturally come up, and like, because like again, like it's not like you're trying to pull God into your workplace. God's already in your workplace. God's already there. So just how are you engaging with Him there? And
that's so good.
People will just naturally get drawn into that. As you seek Him there.
That's cool. So what I'm hearing you saying, and like even for people watching or listening to this, just like a practical kind of like, hey, how can we bring our faith into the workplace in a healthy, integrated way? What I'm hearing is like, if we're just authentic with who we are, like not trying to put on like our work face, our home face, our church face, but if we're just authentic as followers of Jesus, wherever we are, we kind of live out of that authenticity, that's going to naturally and organically open doors and opportunities for conversations and for like showcasing like our faith and sharing that with others. And then it sounds like you're still like, yeah, I'm going to be bold and take those opportunities when they come up, but I don't feel like I need to operate out of a striving or forcing. I can trust that God is working, and I'm just going to take the opportunities He's giving me. Is that kind of like how you would summarize some of what you were saying there 100%. And what people can take away? Yeah. Cool. Dude, I had a great rapid fire question, and I just totally left my brain. It's going to be so good. It's going to be awesome. Yeah, it's going to be sick. But okay, another question that I have for you though, working in the trades. I've heard it can get a little salty sometimes. Some of the conversation can get a little bit unique. Has that something you've ever like struggled with? Has there ever been a temptation to like, you know, join in a little bit, or have you been in uncomfortable situations? What's that been like for you?
Constantly in uncomfortable situations. Especially in the trades. If you're not somebody, if you work in the trades, you know. Like, I don't have to explain this to you, but.
Dude, have you seen these hands? I have no idea what you're talking about.
It can be a pretty spicy place. It can be a lot of just kind of like, just salty, just kind of, I don't want to get pretty aggressive sometimes. Get pretty like upset and just kind of bitter about kind of everything, and because they feel like they're just like stuck in this grind of just like, I kind of come into work and like this and that, nothing's right, or everything's like that, and then like. It is very easy, and I've found myself slipping into that a few times. And obviously it's not something I'm like proud of. Yeah, for sure. But it is definitely something that like when it happens, I'm almost instantly like, I feel guilty, and I feel like I know this is not like the best person that I can be. This is not who I'm even trying to be as a person. Like
Right.
I know I've been like called to be better than that and
Yeah.
like, not engage in that and be like not quick to anger, not quick to like, just all like the fruits of the spirit and stuff like that. I'm trying to like, but when you're in the heat of things, it's not always the easiest to just kind of bring up that. But
okay. So quick question. So perfect world, Josh. If you were, and again, hey, all have stumbled, fallen short of the glory. You know, we all make mistakes. It happens. Yeah, it's good. So I got Jesus. But in the perfect world, like kind of advice you give to yourself. Say you're in a situation where you have a coworker who is like super upset and like complaining about like the boss, or in a situation where a coworker is making like a really inappropriate joke or something. What would be like the ideal way that you'd want to see yourself handle that situation or like navigate being in that environment?
Yeah, because generally a lot of this bitterness does tend to be targeted towards other people.
Yes,
like specific people. It's never usually just like, oh, this job itself is just kind of hard. It's like nobody really complains about the job necessarily. It's more so
the people.
Whether it's like who's ever managing the job or any other kind of like outside. They like to like point it at somebody.
Yeah.
And so for me, like something I've always tried to do, instead of just like kind of stepping in, they'd be like, oh, hey, like, I don't think you should do that. Because then they just look at you and be like, why not?
Yeah, sure.
I always try to like point it away from the person and just point it to the actual like problem and then just try to solve that problem. Like, okay, like how could we like solve this? Like if this is the issue, then like what can we do to like help that? And like try not to direct it at people and just try to keep it, okay, like maybe that person's not actually that bad. Maybe they got other stuff they're going through too. It's like instead of like trying to tear that person down, like if this is the issue and even if they're not necessarily actively helping in it, how can we ourselves take the initiative and just help that and like get a solution for that problem? And so I try to steer it away from targeting towards people. And because end of the day, like I never want to be caught like slandering anybody or anything like that. And I want to try to like even just try to turn conversations that others are having about certain people and just try to like steer it away from that person, the individual, target it at the person and try to create more of like it's just a problem that we got to solve. It's not anybody's direct fault necessarily. It's just this is something we got to work through. Let's just work through it. And so how can we just, instead of just being mad about it, because that doesn't help anything, how can we just fix this problem? And cool. Generally, it helps when you take their mind off of it. Too. Like, okay, like let's just not rant and think about this and this person. How can we just practically solve this? Like this is the issue we're having. Okay, I get it. Let's just solve it. Like let's sit down and figure it out. Yeah,
that's really good, man. That's really good. Okay, one more kind of callback question here, and then I'll do a couple more rapid fire. Going back to like some of the stuff you said about feeling like mission was like going somewhere to do missions. I think one thing that's really attractive for a lot of like passionate people about that is like, I feel like there's a part of me that's like, I'll totally surrender. I'll totally like do the thing. But it's almost easier if you're moving across the world. It's like, well, okay, I'm in it. I'm fired up now. How do you keep that fire for discipleship, for like reaching others with the gospel, for like walking alongside people? And I know that you do this quietly, but really well. There's a reason you've been the best man in like 50 weddings. It's because, what's the actual number? Do you know?
I honestly have lost count. I think it's
12
or 13.
12 or 13. That's insane,
dude.
Wedding
party. Best man has been like 5 or 6.
But that means you're like 5 or 6 people's best friend in the world. And that's like a tall order. And I think it speaks to just your heart to like do life alongside people and love people well and care for those around you. So how do you kind of keep that fire going now that it's like, okay, my mission is here? Do you like how do you battle comfort and just like kind of settling in that context?
That was something that kind of convicted me, like during that whole process of realizing that my mission was more local. I kind of realized that, okay, like I have all this like passion and desire to go and serve people that I have no idea who they are. And sure, like when you're in that space and say you go and you move over there, it's kind of easy to keep that passion going because you've got no other like distractions.
Yeah, there's no other options.
It's like that's what you're there for.
Yeah,
so you got to do it.
Yeah.
But for me, it was like, why do I feel so much less passionate about the people I actually know?
Wow.
The relationships I actually have.
Yeah.
So like if these people are my friends and I love them because they are my friends, and I want to care for them, why do I want to leave them to go serve somebody else that I don't know?
Wow.
Because sure, I'm like missions are important and that's great, and there's definitely great people for that.
Yeah.
But for me, I just got really convicted and like, if I am to do this out of like the love for my neighbor, what's that saying about the neighbor that I'm leaving that I could be ministering to? Wow. So that's kind of like was one of the biggest convictions for me that kind of drew me back to, okay, like I do need to have like a deeper passion for the relationships around me and like the people that are in my life that I can care for. Yeah.
Dude, you get me fired up to do more stuff for my neighbors. And what I just realized is that we now have the same neighbors because we live in the same neighborhood now. Yeah. Like, dude, we should do something for our neighbors. We should like do so. Anyways, all right, we'll talk about this offline. We'll do something. Community event in the Rockaway neighborhood coming soon. But
it's coming. It's gonna be big.
Now it's gonna be out there. We have to actually do this.
That's right. I'm not afraid.
I'm not afraid either. Totally.
No, it's fine.
All right, so I want to ask you a few rapid fire questions here. First off, what's the worst job you've ever had?
Okay, worst. It's definitely when I was in high school. It was a very, very brief moment in time, like a couple months tops. Yeah. I worked for the local KFC Taco Bell.
Come on, beautiful.
It was something.
It's like we were talking earlier about like, redemptive work and like, making an impact on I feel like there's no positive impact from working from serving double. What's like the thing where it's like the chicken on both sides? The double downs, the double downs. I remember in high school we would always like go like with like guys from the football team at lunch, and it was like when it was double downs season, we had to go get some double downs with the boys. We eat like 3 each. Oh,
and then just like slept and cried through the last 3 classes of the day. Like,
just sitting there in like algebra with meat sweats. It was a terrible experience.
We used to do that with like triple bacon eaters. Like world history, and we're all passed out. And couldn't make it through.
For you, what would be some advice that you would give to somebody who wants to be an electrician?
I would say stick it out. Especially at the start. First of all, like commit to it. Go for the apprenticeship, do the work, because it's not the easiest to get in. I got really lucky with my situation, but I know a lot of people kind of work really hard to try to get those apprenticeships. So I would say, like, if you want it, you got to put the work in to get it. But then once you're in it, you got to commit. For like the first 3 years are rough. It's a bit of a tough go, but it's definitely worth it in the end, and I don't think you'll ever regret what you're doing. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool, man. Okay, so I know that you have done a lot of electrical work for friends and a lot of things to support different people, and there's been like a lot of like tradesies and stuff that have happened for some of this work. What would be like some of the most interesting things that you've had traded for your electrical work skills?
Okay, so exchange of services, wonderful.
Yeah.
To literally anybody. It's probably the best thing to do.
Yeah.
So probably the best. I've gotten a lot of tattoos for free or very, very, very cheap.
Yeah.
In exchange for like putting a couple lights up.
Oh, that's not bad at all.
It's not bad. And when you look at like the work put into each, he definitely put way more work.
Like, this is very generous.
I felt very guilty, but I was like, hey, this is what you're offering. I'm not going to say no.
Yeah, that's sick. That's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, so you've been like the best man in like 50 weddings or something like that. What's the actual number?
Oh, honestly, I've lost count of things. I've been in, I think, 12 to 13 weddings, and I think I've been the best man like 5 or 6 times. At least.
But like being a best man 5 or 6 times means you were like 5 or 6 people's best friend in the world. And I think that honestly just speaks to your heart for people, your ability to build relationships. What would be like just one simple way that like to invest in somebody relationally or to invest in a relationship? Like what's one quick tip?
Quick tip for that. I think it's like really easy to be like kind of passionate about different hobbies and stuff that you have.
Yeah.
But for me, I think it's like something that really convicted me a long time ago is like, if I can be so passionate or feel like so strongly about something, whether it's just like, whether we're talking about like missions abroad or something, maybe a hobby that we're into, how much more passionate should I be about the actual people in my life? The relationships that I have, the friendships that I have, and how important is it to just like keep in touch with those people and keep pouring into those people, and not letting them kind of like just kind of fade away over the years. But how can I stay engaged in their lives? How can I stay ministering to them and discipling them? And just being like an active light in their life. Yes, it was very.
Which one like measures how intense an electrical current is? Is it volts or amps?
Like kind of both in different ways.
Which one would be worse if there's more that electrocutes you?
Amperage.
Amperage? Okay, what's the most amperage you've had? You've been electrocuted by?
Most amperage? Well, I guess like, I don't know. Amps are probably like the bigger effect, like how you feel it. I don't know. If you picture like a river, voltage is how fast the water's going, and amperage but is how wide the river is. Okay, so just in general, what's the worst river you've fallen into? I've gotten a pretty bad one that kind of went, my finger was just off the insulated part of my pliers and just on the metal part. And a joint kind of came apart, which then sparked through, but my other hand was just touching metal box, which was grounded. And so I felt it go from one hand all the way through my chest and out the other hand. And that did not feel nice. I had to take a nice little like hour break after that one to kind of recuperate.
Oh my gosh, dude, that's so scary.
But yeah, I kind of shot my arm back pretty hard.
Yeah, do you have any like cool superpowers now or anything? Like no spiders landed on you at that time?
For a while, but
dang, that's too bad. Well, awesome, man. Thank you so much for doing this and taking some time to just chat through your experience with faith and work. And I think thank you guys for tuning in and listening to this conversation as well. I really hope that people can come away from this, honestly, just I think encouraged, but also challenged by the way that you've kind of described this journey of going from having your faith and work as these two totally separate things to figuring, hey, how can I live a life that is fully integrated, but still passionate about discipleship and passionate about the people that God has called me to and where I find myself today. I think it's going to really help out a lot of people. So thank you so much, Josh. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you on Sunday as we continue our Set Apart series.